Multiplication is commutative. So 2/3 times 1/4 is the exact same thing as 1/4 times 2/3. Doesn't matter which way you have the numbers at all, which is lucky for us. The first thing we're going to talk about is multiplying a fraction times a fraction, like I have up here with the word problem. I have 3/4 of a pizza left over. I want to eat 1/3 of what is actually left over for lunch. How much will I get to eat? So first I'm going to be thinking about what kind of picture could I draw? And because I've got 3/4 of a pizza left over, I'm going to draw that 3/4 first. So I split a box into 4 pieces, and I'm going to shade in 3 of them because that's the pizza part that I have left over from dinner or something the last night. Now I'm actually going to want to eat 1/3 of this portion that's there. So I'm going to chop what I have into thirds, and I'm going to shade in 1/3. The part that I'm actually getting to eat is this part that is double shaded, which would be a total of 3 pieces out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 8, 12. So my answer would be 3/12. If I wanted to write this as an equation and actually just solve it without a picture, we learned the trick that we can just multiply across. So we would write down 3/4 times 1/3. We would just multiply the number straight across. 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. So we can double check that. We got 3/12 with our picture, and we got 3/12 with our actual multiplying straight across strategy. Second thing we're going to look at is a fraction times a whole number. Same kind of process, we just need to think about it a little bit differently with our pictures. So in this case, I have a piece of wood that measures 4 feet. I need 1/3 of it for my project. How many feet do I need? So again, I'm going to draw my picture. This time I've got 4 different feet of wood. So here's my 4 feet of wood, and I'm going to shade in all 4 of them because I have those 4 feet, like this. And then after that, because I'm taking 1/3 of each of my feet, I'm going to chop each piece into thirds and shade in that 1/3. So then I have to think about, okay, how much is each one of these double shaded pieces? We've got 1/3 here, 1/3 here, 1/3 here, and 1/3 here. So if I add all of that up, that's going to give me 4/3. Now if I want to do it just with our straight across multiplying strategy instead of with pictures, it's going to look very similar to what we did with the fraction times a fraction. We're going to have our 1/3 times 4, but we know that 4 wholes is the same thing as 4 over 1. So when we multiply, we'll say 1 times 4 is 4. And same thing on the denominator, 3 times 1 is 3. So I'll get an answer of 4/3 just like I did with my picture, so I can double check those two. And if I want to change 4/3 actually back into a mixed number, which would make most sense for how much wood I'm getting, I would have 1 full piece of wood and 1/3 feet. So it would be 1 1/3 of a foot. And then the last thing we talked about was a fraction times a mixed number. So in this case we have a recipe and it calls for 2 1/3 cups of flour. I want to make half of a batch of whatever it might be. Maybe it's brownies or cookies. So I need to figure out how much flour do I actually need if I'm only making half of a batch. Now we didn't learn how to draw pictures for this, we just used the straight across strategy. So we're going to think about 2 1/3 times 1/2, like we have here. Okay, so if I've got 2 1/3 times 1/2, I'm actually going to change this 2 1/3 back into an improper fraction to make it a little bit easier. So I do 3 times 2, which is 6. Add on that 1 to make it 7/3 times a half. So 7/3 times 1/2. I'll multiply straight across. 7 times 1 is 7. And 3 times 2 is 6. So it's 7/6. However, we can change that back into that mixed number, which would give us 1 and 1/6 of a cup. And if we just want to get really crazy and try it as a picture, we sure could try. So we've got 7/3 here. I'm going to make my picture have 7/3. You might be wondering, how do you draw 7/3? It's actually going to end up being this 2 1/3. So I'm going to have my boxes split up into thirds. Shade those in. So that's 3 shaded in. 4, 5, 6. I'm going to need one more box. And then there's my 7/3. Then from that, I'm going to be chopping those in half. Like that. And I'm going to shade in each of these top pieces. Okay, and I'm going to count up how many pieces I've got double shaded, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces double shaded, out of how many that are in one of my cups of flour, or one of my boxes that I've drawn, which is 6. So my answers check out, 7/6 here and 7/6 there. So that's how you can solve fractions times fractions, fraction times mixed number, and fractions times a whole number. But just remember, you can flip-flop those numbers when you're multiplying, because it is commutative, and our strategy was just to multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. If you need a reminder of how to draw the pictures, rewind the video and watch again.